December 21st. Okay.
Hi, this is Pat Miller, Gabby Gourmet, here with Stir Crazy in the Kitchen with my pal Lynn Thielen of Roth Living and Ben Davis, who's really the star of this show from Roth Living. I can't believe it's 4 days till actual
Oh
Christmas.
my gosh.
Those who are
I
celebrating,
know.
get your act together. I know a perfect gift or a perfect way to make people. Well, I don't know. Amongst your favorite things, what's one of them?
Mhm. To make me happy, well, food is always a really good bet. I love hanging out with family around Christmas.
Mine is eating chocolate chip cookies and all the others. And so, Stir Crazy in the Kitchen, where you can go to stircrazyinthekitchen.com, fill out, hit subscribe, and you'll get every recipe as well as see Ben win. He'll be at your side cooking with you.
Yes.
But you have a new twist, Ben. Tell us. You're the star.
Well, thanks, Gabby. And if I don't get to see you before Christmas, have a wonderful holiday. So I hope that goes well. And this is not what we would call sort of a traditional holiday cookie, right? We make all the different traditional holiday cookies. Chocolate chip cookies, I think, can be regarded as sort of an everyday cookie. But this is a great recipe if you want to give a little twist to your chocolate chip cookies. Gives it a little bit of a caramel sort of flavor. Got a couple little techniques that you take care. You don't need a mixer. You don't need a fancy stand mixer. You just need a whisk and a spatula, and that's all you'll really need to mix it together. So it doesn't require a lot of fancy equipment. It just requires a little time to give it that extra bit of flavor and kind of wow your friends, I hope, with this. So this has been a very popular cookie here in the showroom that we like to give out when we were having people in the showroom live. We used to put out plates of cookies for them. We haven't done that since March, so it's been a while.
And these are the best cookies. Like,
well, then I better get some of these.
We're so spoiled.
My favorite food is chocolate chip cookies.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I hope you'll like these a lot, Gabby. So, but you can see this is everything that's required is right here in front of me. So let's get started. And here's the real. You're going to start right off the bat with the trick that gives them this extra bit of flavor. So you're going to make some brown butter. So you're going to take the butter in the recipe and you're going to divide it. Right? It calls for 14 tablespoons. You're going to take about 8 or 10 of those tablespoons, right? Just like that. You're going to put it into a saucepan that you can cover. You want to make sure you can cover it, right? So you want to put that on with about a medium flame. Put the lid on it at the beginning to let it melt, right? That's the most important. Remember, butter is made up of 3 constituent parts. The majority of butter is butter fat, right? It's the part that we associate with the flavor of butter, all the fat, the stuff that we are told to avoid, right? The other 2 components of butter are water, and the third is the whey or the milk solids, right, that are in the butter as part of the process. So when we're making brown butter, what we're trying to do is obviously we're going to melt it. We're going to try to get rid of as much of the water as possible by sort of evaporating it through cooking it. But then those milk solids that remain in the pan will brown. We'll get that wonderful nutty sort of hazelnut flavor, toasted flavor. Gives a lot of nuanced flavors to things. So you can put brown butter in any number of things. You can put it in a vinaigrette. You can put it in, in a cake batter. And obviously, any of your doughs where you're talking about using butter, you can use brown butter, and it gives you that just little bit of extra flavor. And obviously, it's wonderful if you just brown some butter, pour it on a piece of grilled or broiled fish, and then squeeze some lemon on top of it. It's such a simple way to make a sauce, but there's lots of wonderful flavors going on there. And all you've done is taken those milk solids and toasted them and give it that extra layer of flavor. So this is the majority of the butter. It's in our pan. It's melting down. We want to keep the lid on it so it doesn't splatter all over the stove, and just let it cook there over, like I said, about a medium flame. All right. So the remainder of the butter, the other few tablespoons, are gonna go into a large bowl. You wanna just put those right in the bowl and have them ready for when the brown butter is set and we're gonna get ready to cook it, right? Get ready to mix it all together.
You're not actually caramelizing this, or are you?
No, you're just gonna
Okay.
essentially toast the butter, the milk solids in the butter, and that's gonna give it the flavor. And it's gonna take anywhere between 4, maybe 6 minutes at the most, depending on how high a flame you use. You don't wanna use a super heavy duty flame because you don't wanna run the risk of creating a black butter, which,
Right.
although it does have certain uses, of which we will not speak right now, it doesn't really taste good in a cookie, so we're not gonna do that, all right? So we're just gonna let that toast. All right, so the other ingredients that we have for our chocolate chip cookies are pretty standard, right? We've got 2 kinds of sugar. We've got a light brown sugar, we've got granulated sugar, we've got a little bit of vanilla extract. I like to use kosher salt or a coarse grind sea salt for my salt in the cookie, because I like that little nugget of salt when I bite into the cookie. So it just gives it a little extra flavor pop when you have the sweetness of everything that's going on. You get that little bit of salt. So I like to use a coarse grind of either kosher salt or sea salt, but just make sure it's coarse. Don't use a fine salt.
I think an interesting note is that to make sweets, it always calls for a little salt, and some people say, no, but that's what makes it good.
That's really what makes that flavor pop. That
Right.
really makes the chocolate taste like the chocolate. You taste the caramel notes from your brown sugar. You taste the brown butter. All those things are enhanced by that little bit of salt that we've
It
added
needs
to the
that,
batter.
yeah.
Okay, so the flour, we've got just some good all-purpose flour. And to that, we're just going to add about a half a teaspoon of baking soda, right? So you want to just do that ahead. Just go ahead and just give that a quick little stir together so it's blended. You don't have to sift it. Just take your whisk to it and blend it together. Just the flour and the baking soda, all right? Okay, and then obviously we've got a couple of eggs. We're going to use 1 whole egg in addition to an egg yolk. And then we've got our chocolate chips, and just whatever chocolate chip you like. If you'd like to use something a little more exotic, a darker chocolate, a bittersweet, something like that, that's really going to be up to you. But these are a more traditional, just a semi-sweet chocolate chip. That's all it requires. You don't need to go out and do fancy things with your chocolate, but if you want to, feel free. So now, can you see we've got our butter is bubbling. We've got a little condensation on the lid here. And we're going to take a good heat-proof spatula, and we're just going to stir down the sides so we can see all the butter solids that have toasted and turned nice and golden brown, and those are collecting in the pan. And so it's
Can you
just
show
simmering
this
away.
to us?
You see, just
Okay.
here. Let me get my little controller.
Well, I'm asking because when I'm looking, I still see a lot of yellow.
It's going to look like melted butter, but you're going to notice that in the bottom are a bunch of brown flecks. And that's the brown butter. So you can
Oh,
not sure if
okay,
you
so
can see
I'm
it.
not browning every
The whole thing. You just want to see the little brown flecks in the bottom.
Okay,
So
then.
let me see if I can zoom in a little bit better.
No, I can see it now. I was concerned because I thought it all had to turn brown.
No, it should just look like that. It should just look liquid with the little brown spots. Now, we're going to pour that over our other things of butter and just let those melt and cool it down just a little bit. All right, so just give this a little bit of a stir to cool down that. And it's going to smell very toasty, right? Don't worry if it smells like a little tiny bit like you burned something, because technically you did. So, right? But you just want to give that just that little bit of extra flavor. And the further you go with the browning of the butter, the deeper that flavor is going to be. All right. So now we just want to make sure that that's completely melted. Now this is where it starts to get interesting as you're mixing this together. Because here's where it diverges from the traditional way of stirring together a chocolate chip cookie. You know, normally in a chocolate chip cookie, we cream the butter with the sugars, we get it nice and light, then we fold in our extract and our eggs, and then we, last but not least, we stir in the flour, add our chocolate chips, and we're good to go. This is going to be a little bit different. We're going to start by taking both of our sugars, so the brown sugar and the granulated sugar. You're going to take your whisk, and you just want to stir that until there's no lumps left at all. Just give it a stir. It's not going to be hard, but the key is kind of breaking up the lumps of your brown sugar, especially if it's a little bit on the dry side. You want to just make sure you break up any lumps in the bowl. And it's going to look like this. It's just going to look kind of like, you know, doesn't look homogeneous at all. Doesn't, you know, it looks a little bit weird. So let's add our vanilla extract next. Give that a quick stir. Now here's where the magic happens. We're going to add our egg. We're going to add our yolk.
Oh, you did it so well.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so now the egg and your yolk, take your whisk and you're going to whisk it, and you're going to whisk it vigorously for 30 seconds. So you want a good stiff whisk. 30 seconds is about 60 strokes if you want to count the number of strokes, but you want to get it nicely whisked together. Now look how it's changed. You see how that's changed?
Yeah.
And it has an almost ribbon quality towards it, right? We've done it 30 seconds or so, giving it a good whisking. Now you want to rest it for about 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. Just let it sit on your counter. You don't have to do anything. And you don't have to time it. Just give it some chance to relax just a little bit. Let it rest, kind of subside a little bit. It might loosen its color just a bit. It might just kind of spread a little bit. That's all you want to do. You want to do that, and you want to repeat that process 2 more times. All right, so you're going to whisk it for a total of 1.5 minutes. You're going to let it rest for about 8 or 9 minutes, right? In between those whiskings, right? What that does is it helps kind of build up that nice structure with the egg. It lightens it. It gives it, you know, a chance for the sugar to become nicely incorporated into the whole thing. And then it's very simple at that next
Wait,
stage.
I have a question.
Okay, you have a question. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, that's about all I'm good for. I've let it rest for 3 minutes. I'm repeating it, but I'm repeating the 3 minute, not the 30-second original, right?
No, I'm going to whisk it and then rest it, and then whisk it and then rest it.
Right, but
So
the first part with the vigorous for 30 seconds, no.
Yes, you do. Yeah. So we're just going to let it sit. So now we'll just let it sit for, you know, a minute or so, a minute or two, right? So then you're going to whisk it again.
Oh, okay. For 30 seconds and then,
And I guess you could use a mixer if you wanted to do that, but come on.
okay,
Come
I got you.
on.
So we have to work hard for 30 seconds and then rest.
And then you get a chance to sit down, have a glass of eggnog, and then go back to whisking it. So, but again, you see how it's thickening just a little bit now
Mhm.
as we repeat that process
Oh,
of
wow,
whisking it.
yeah.
It's just going to get a little bit thicker each time, right? So just going to we'll give it a shorter rest than we might normally at home,
I'm with
right?
you, yes.
But we're going to whisk it a third time.
Oh, my arm is tired.
I know, I'm exhausted.
Like I said, you probably could use a mixer if you want to, but I find it's a lot of cleaning for no reason. I don't need.
I
a
hate
mixer
to
for
do
this.
that.
And I have to clean out the beater.
Right? The beaters are always like so hard to clean
Yeah.
too.
So giving it our 3 go rounds, right? Let it rest. Now we're gonna add the flour and baking soda.
Oh, that'll thicken it.
And at the same time, I'm gonna pour my chips on top of that. And then there's my kosher salt. And now you're just gonna stir it together till it forms a nice cake batter. Cookie dough. Getting my desserts confused.
Sounds good no matter what.
But just stir it till you can no longer see the flour in the mix. That's all you need to do. And then what I like to do at this point is I like to refrigerate it for about 15 minutes. And once I've done that, my recommendation, if you're not gonna bake them and eat them right away, get yourself a cookie scoop, just a small 1.5 ounce scoop, and scoop them out onto a baking sheet lined with some parchment paper. And then if you want to save them for a future date, you can freeze them on this tray. And once they're nice and frozen, pop them into a Ziploc bag, and you'll always have them ready to go in your freezer. So if you ever need freshly baked chocolate chip cookies, you can bake them right from the frozen state. And when you're ready to bake them, you want to preheat your oven to 375 degrees, right? And let the cookies bake anywhere from 12 to 14 minutes. So here's some we just finished, right? You see they spread nicely. They have a nice little toasted, but the nice thing is that they still are just a little bit soft in the middle.
Oh my goodness.
And they're just a delight to have around. It's such an easy way to make a chocolate chip cookie. You'll notice, again, that little bit of a caramel note that you'll get from the brown butter and the heavier use of brown sugar than you get in the cookie. So I think you're gonna like that. And just keeping them frozen in your freezer, it's so easy to just pop them out, throw them onto a tray. Bake them from the frozen state. They'll require, like I say, about 14 minutes when they're completely frozen. If they're fresh, they'll probably only take about 12 to bake, and then just let them cool on the tray and then on a cooling rack so that they're to the texture that you prefer. So really fun way to make a chocolate chip cookie.
I wonder if Santa would go after those cookies. No?
Well, you
It's
can
bet
certainly
so.
try.
COVID, so just leave them for me.
Okay.
You're not supposed to leave them for Santa.
I guess he's gonna have to be aware of that.
Santa's cut off some
Everybody.
cookies this year.
The recipe for brown butter chocolate chip cookies will be on stircrazyinthekitchen.com. You can go anytime to get that once you subscribe, or go see the video on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram with Chef Ben from Roth Living, Lynn Thielen from Roth Living. I'm Gabby. I'm just living. And we all from Stir Crazy in the Kitchen, from all of us, a very Merry, Merry Christmas. Much love.
Thanks, Gabby.
Thank you.